I am living proof that you can indeed learn new things in your late 20s and early 30s, even things you've always been notoriously bad at. Hello and welcome back to my channel. I am Andrea and apparently I can bake now. We're gonna be talking about baking today, of course, but really baking is just the catalyst for the actual theme that I want to talk about in this video. And that has more to do with learning new things and building new skills that maybe you never really expected yourself to build. Because maybe if you're like me, you've kind of constructed your identity around that lack of skill in a way. You might remember back in the day when I was still a newbie YouTuber, I made some videos. One in particular was kind of my first initiation into this, and it was indeed, it was something. It was a baking fail, a big baking fail. And it was not my first, and it was not my last. And I made a whole fun video out of it of just how disastrous it was. And I knew going into it probably would be disastrous. I didn't realize the end product would be quite so horrible, but I knew it was gonna be bad. Growing up, I just really never was that interested in anything in the kitchen. Cooking, baking, none of it. I was a middle child. I had two sisters, an older sister, a younger sister. My older sister was very interested in that sort of thing, and we would do stuff together, all three of us sometimes. We watched like cupcake wars and stuff for a while, and we'd bake cupcakes and, you know, recreate recipes. But I was really just the support. Like, I don't even know if I can give myself the title of sous chef. I was really just there to follow instructions, to read the recipe, to get the ingredients out. I was not the mastermind. It was not me, really. It was my older sister mostly. My younger sister was a bit more on the decoration, and I was just there. I was just the vibes. I don't really know when this started to shift for me, but I think it was maybe when I was becoming vegetarian. It's been like 8-ish years, I think, now that I've been fully vegetarian. But I started experimenting before. It was like a slow transition for me. And maybe it was that kind of made me a little bit more curious about what I was eating and how to make recipes. I started maybe following people online who had creative vegetarian and vegan recipes. And I slowly started to try stuff. But I mean, when you imagine where we're starting from a place where literally I could ruin recipes that really should not have been possible to ruin. And I don't know how I did it. I wasn't doing it to be cute. I wasn't doing it to be funny. I really went into it trying. And then sometimes I got distracted, maybe watching a video or something while I was trying to cook. Even when I was fully paying attention though, I would miscalculate stuff. I didn't understand, I guess, how things cook. And how to avoid like burning them, for example. I could burn stuff that like someone would tell me, this recipe is impossible to fail. There's no way you can burn that. There's no way, like, don't start a sentence with there's no way you can, because I will find a way to do it. So we're starting from a very, very low point. Me in my late teens, early 20s, like lower than I would imagine a lot of other people were, at least a lot of the people in my circles, to the point where it was like part of my identity. I was the one in the group who couldn't cook, who couldn't bake, who always managed to mess stuff up in that realm. You know, that was just a skill I didn't have, and I kind of embraced it. I like, you know, a little bit of self-deprecating humor. So I leaned into it, I guess, as well. And then I started to experiment a bit more when I was in my, like, I guess, mid-20s. Then 2020 happened. That was probably the moment that I started to get into baking specifically. If I had to, like, rate myself currently and my skill level with cooking, like, savory meals and main dishes and that sort of thing, I still would say I rank fairly, let's just say, middle of the road. I'm not, like, terrible, but I'm also not fabulous. But when it comes to baking, well, I still wouldn't say that I'm great, but I am so much better. And I actually really enjoy it. During those weeks and months of really strict lockdown in Paris, I really needed something to do at home. I started doing home workouts, Pilates, which was something I already did a little bit, but I definitely started doing it a lot more during that time. So I discovered that love as well, Pilates. That's another thing maybe I'll talk about a little bit later in this video. Another skill that I never really thought I would have. But I also started baking more. A lot of my friends started baking stuff, baking bread and stuff. I didn't really get into bread then. I have a little bit since then, but not super hardcore yet. But a lot of like sweet breads, like banana bread, cinnamon bread, that sort of thing. And a lot of, you know, cakes and muffins, baked donuts, you know, really easy stuff to begin with. I think for me, that was probably also why baking was an easy thing to sort of get started in. It's a little bit less intimidating to me, at least, than cooking, because I feel like your like proper good recipes for main dishes are still going to be more complicated than your easiest baking recipes. I know a lot of people focus on how precise baking has to be, but to me, I would rather risk the cake or the muffin or whatever not having a great texture or something because you didn't do something quite right than risk like actually destroying and burning a meal and then not having dinner that evening because that was what you were counting on having. You know, I guess the stakes are higher for me when it comes to savory. And also usually if it's sweet stuff, I will still eat it. Like it will still taste good enough to eat, at least for me, even if it's not fabulous. So I started, you know, buying some baking ingredients, having some stuff on hand to where if I had an afternoon or an evening or a weekend, you know, morning or something where I needed something to do and we were locked down, we couldn't go anywhere, I would bake something. And then, you know, it was just my husband and me to eat it all by ourselves because we were fully not able to, you know, leave and see other people. Cut to now, a few years later, my husband and I are living in the Netherlands. We've made a lot of new friends in the past like year and a half because we knew nobody when we moved here. And I actually have kind of made myself known as the one who bakes. Like the one who always brings something homemade to get-togethers and game nights and whatever occasion, you know, there is. The one who actually bakes stuff worth trying. That's good. How did this happen? How did I become this one in the group? I just can't quite comprehend. At the beginning, I started with some tried and true recipes, some stuff that I'd done before, I knew it was good, but I actually have found myself also finding new recipes, making them for the first time, and then bringing them to people. Like, testing new recipes on people without knowing if I can do them. And I actually have enough confidence that I'm pretty sure they're okay. And a lot of people have actually really enjoyed the stuff that I've brought, and I don't think they're just saying that. I don't quite know how to reconcile this some days with my perception of myself as the person who really did not have that skill at all and who's getting better. Like I had fully accepted that I enjoy baking and I can cook sometimes and enjoy an occasional recipe, but I really hadn't prepared myself for making myself kind of the one in the group where everyone kind of assumes, oh, Andrea's gonna bring something. It's really good usually when she does. Like I don't quite know how to accept this. To be fair, they've probably never seen that baking fail video from 10 years ago. And if they had, maybe they would, you know, go in with a bit more caution. But still, it is a compliment. And it's just further proof that your identity is not set in stone when you are 22 or 25 and whatever skills you have, you know, you probably, hopefully, maybe will keep them. But you can also learn new things to a point where people actually, especially people who maybe didn't know you before, would never question necessarily that you had ever not had that skill. If I asked some of my friends here if they thought I would be a terrible baker who would burn everything that I touched and who couldn't, you know, manage even a simple banana bread, they probably, I mean, they might believe me, I guess. Still, I don't think that they would imagine that from me unless I told them. For all they know, I've always been interested in baking and good at baking. You guys know differently. There's proof on the internet that it was different, but nobody needs to know that, do they? That can be our secret. I think sometimes I also kind of hesitate to think of myself as a good baker because I think in the back of my mind, I am a little bit afraid that the disaster making part of me will come back out, and at one point I will make something and put a lot of effort into something, and not only will it just be okay or, you know, the texture's not quite right or something, but I will really destroy something. That fear, I guess, kind of comes back out. Like, you can't actually be this good at baking. It's gonna, like, the bubble's gonna burst. And I have had some not so great results before. One time I made a carrot cake that was so good on the, like, outer portions, but right at the center, it kind of sank, and wasn't quite done in the middle. So it was like kind of gooey. And some people like stuff that's really gooey, but first of all, it wasn't intended to be. And second of all, I think it was, even for people who like, you know, gooey, slightly underdone things, I think it was too underdone. But still, I haven't had like a proper fail like I used to all the time, like every time I'd set foot in the kitchen. I mentioned earlier in this video Pilates, and that is another little niche, I guess, that I can briefly talk about as another example of this, like learning something new, something I never thought that I would be good at, a skill that I would have. I have never been an athletic person. How many times have I said that now on this channel? If you've watched my past few videos, I've probably said it like one every 3 or 4 videos, but I really haven't. I was the lit kid, you know, the reader, the music person, the orchestra kid. Like, I excelled in the arts, but sports, athletic stuff, like my parents tried. They put me in softball for a bit. They put me in soccer. When I was really little, I did dance, tumbling, gymnastics, ice skating, a very brief moment. Like, they tried lots of different things to see kind of what me and my sisters would get into. And I just really, I enjoyed the beginnings of them, but then inevitably I would hit a block still really early on when it would get too competitive or too risky and I'd be really scared. Not every time did I quit because of fear, but a lot of times I think it was the problem. I remember specifically, because I was a bit older at the time, gymnastics. I was terrified to do a back bend, like an actual back bend from standing position. I would do bridges and all of that, but I hated the back bend because I was too afraid of hurting my head. So I couldn't progress. Like I couldn't move to the next level because you had to be able to do certain things, and one of them was a back bend, and I just couldn't. So I quit. When I got a bit older, like, you know, mid, late teens, I did enjoy certain types of exercise, but I was living with my parents and they had stuff at home. They had like an elliptical, a treadmill, standing bike, weights. So I never went to a gym. And then when I went to university, my university had an amazing gym, like a fantastic gym that I could access. And I went a total of like twice, I think, during the entire time I was there, because I was just too nervous. I didn't want to use the machines that I didn't understand in front of people. I thought people would look at me and be like, who is that nerd trying to use a weights machine? I didn't go to a public gym until I was married, living with my husband. He joined a gym and he asked if I wanted to join it with him. And I started going with him. And when I didn't understand a machine, I could ask him. And he either already understood it or was actually willing to figure out how to use it. And it was just so much easier for me to be with someone who would kind of do that for me or like break the ice for me in that way. And so I started going to a public gym, started Pilates, which is a home thing. I still haven't been brave enough to actually try a Pilates class with other people, but I love doing home Pilates. And now, in the past year and a bit, I've started bouldering, and as of this year, top rope climbing in busy gyms with tons of other people around me. And the people are of varying athleticisms, but the vast majority are more fit, more athletic, more, you know, stronger, more smooth and elegant with their climbs than I am. But I don't care for the most part. I go regularly 2-3 times a week and climb around a bunch of people, most of whom are very athletic, and I'm, you know, I guess maybe starting to become, but not super athletic myself. Certainly not an athletic person for very long. And I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing. So I guess what I'm trying to say with all of this is that it can be really interesting and a very unique experience to learn new things in your late 20s and your early 30s, when maybe you've already kind of hit a point where you think that you know your career or your job or what you're good at, and you have your hobbies, and maybe you have your friends. And if you don't move everywhere in every couple of years like I do, you might have the same set of friends as when you were 20 or 22 or 24. But that doesn't mean that you have to stop trying new things. And actually, it can be really, really enriching to learn new things or to get good at something that maybe you've always kind of done a little bit here and there or dabbled in, but you've never considered yourself great. If you apply yourself to it and actually really start exploring it, maybe you can change that, and maybe it's actually a really fun and good thing to do. And it feels very different, at least to me, from when I was trying new things when I was 16 or 18 or 21. Like, it felt different then because I feel like at that moment in my life, I still had a lot of unknowns. I mean, I still have a lot of unknowns, but it was different at the time. I felt like everything was a bit of an unknown and everything was ahead of me. The world was my oyster, that sort of thing that you have, I think, more so when you're in that sort of age or like time of your life. But once you pass that point, I think we can sometimes start to get kind of settled into a certain thing. And there are certain things, like if you are really happy with your career or really happy with a specific hobby, that's great, you know, keep it up. But also don't be afraid to try something new. It's never too late. It's really never too late. And if you're watching this and you are someone who is in your like maybe mid 20s, late 20s, early 30s like me, and if, you know, you were thinking about trying something or you weren't quite sure if it was a good idea, or if you're worried about seeming silly or looking silly because you're already this age, whatever age that is, and you think it's too old, it's not. It's really not. And you might actually discover something that will change your life in a really great way. Like bouldering and climbing, which I just don't stop talking about. I know that I'm a stereotype because apparently this is something that people do when they pass 30. But I have no regrets. And I also have no regrets about accidentally making myself the one who bakes in my new circles of friends. That's okay with me. And it gives me a really good excuse to try new recipes and share them. Am I kind of just buying my new friends with sweets? Possibly. All right, I want to hear from you guys now. Let me know in the comments below if you have a story like mine, if there was something that you were always really, really bad at or thought that you were really, really bad at, and then one day you discovered that maybe you actually could do. Or if there's something that you really do want to get better at, but you haven't yet taken the plunge to actually start trying, you can also leave that in the comments below, and maybe we can all encourage each other a little bit to actually dive in and start doing the thing. Before you go, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment, and make sure you subscribe to my channel if you want to see whatever comes next. I am posting a lot more regularly, guys, so, you know, you could be missing out. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you very soon in another video.